seeing some comments in the chat. I've been looking around trying to verify some rumblings here that that the Sooners and Longhorns will leave early for the SEC, and that certainly would be no surprise to either one of us. We've talked about it for months and months and months that we anticipate this not, this deal was announced in the summer of 21, and to expect these leagues not to move until 2025. The SEC is forward thinking. They want two more big brands in the league. Let's get on with the future and not be waiting and waiting and waiting from a media rights standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, and how we're going to divide the league and form the league in terms of divisions and pods. It just makes no sense that it's not going to happen sooner than 2025, and people are letting us know that that's out there today.
Yeah, so I think this started, Mark, this morning with, I think it was Pete Thamel that that reported that ESPN and others that were starting to get into negotiations with the Big 12 media rights deal. And so I take this with a little bit of grain of salt because I haven't seen specifically anyone else report this, but Dennis Dodd has reported that he has learned that while that's ongoing, Oklahoma and Texas are actively negotiating to leave the Big 12 conference early. So would like to have that, just from a credibility perspective, would like to see that echoed by maybe some other ones, and maybe it's out there, but I just haven't seen it. But I think, number one, that's really good for the Big 12, right? I think they one of the big things is, they're trying to lure some of those other Pac-12 teams over there. And so I think this is a really brilliant move for the Big 12 to really kind of put that revenue in place to see, okay, this is what this would look like in terms of their slice of the pie for, for some of these teams, like I think Colorado, Utah, some other Oregon's, maybe potentially. I think Oregon's really wanting to move to the Big Ten, but just to see how that looks. And so, as we talked about, I was probably, Mark, I was fairly in the 2024 circle, but when everything with USC and UCLA happened, knowing that they're moving to the Big Ten and they'll start that, and then the TV start that next year, then the TV revenue, situation that the Big Ten signed, I think that happening next year has sort of forced both, more so probably on the SEC side, but Oklahoma and Texas to move forward in a little bit of a quicker fashion. So I think all signs seem to be pointing and indicating that Oklahoma, Texas will be in the SEC next year. We'll see how that continues to progress. Obviously here through the next few. I mean, who knows with these things? When these things happen, it seems like they move extra quick. Right. I mean, when we first heard about the UCLA USC thing, it was announced either later that day or the next day by both schools. So some of these things start happening pretty quickly. So once they get leaked, at least. So I think it's exciting. I think a lot of people would like to see Oklahoma and Texas move over next year, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm firmly in the camp that I think it'll happen next year. Now I don't see I see the SEC waiting around and allowing what USC and UCLA are doing, and the Big Ten just overall with now being the richest conference in the country, surpassing the SEC. They're not going to. I don't think that they're going to stand and be in a holding pattern on that.
And it looks like I'm not going to get my wish of having Oklahoma and Texas stay in the Big 12 and play Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. I wanted to see them all smashed together for an uncomfortable year and then see the results play out to favor one situation or the other. But it'll probably be a clean break.
Yeah, I think so. I think it will be too. I mean, I'm with you. I would be interested in it, at least for a year, just seeing what that looks like. But I think the idea of Oklahoma and Texas being at 11 a.m. on CBS, like things like that, really intrigue Obviously the
Mhm.
SEC, but
Yeah.
for another year. But then because I think that new then they'll still broadcast SEC games next year. Then
Yes.
2024 is when that contract is completely over. So yeah, I mean that's something that they would that they would love, CBS would love, and so yeah, I mean I think it would be nice as you mentioned, just to see what that Big 12 looks like for a year. But I think you're right. I don't think either one of us will get that. Will get that wish.
Yeah. CBS is going to have to juggle, if I've got this straight, the Big Ten and the SEC next season. The contracts are going to overlap, so that'll be interesting to see how you got to think that they're going to favor their new partner over their old partner that's outgoing, but at the same time, SEC games are attractive, so they'll have to figure out what that means to them. And yeah, again, I wanted to see some interesting matchups that we're not going to see otherwise, at least take place for a year. But probably a clean break with Oklahoma, Texas leaving at the same point that the other four jump into the Big 12. And the Big 12 then, yeah, looks to the West Coast to see what they can do to further stabilize and build the league into something that can somewhat challenge the Big Ten and the SEC, not at the same level, but at least maintain their relevancy in the sport.